Welcome to Wednesday Words on August the 20th, 2025, here on Following Him, the Disciple Life. The word today is a word that is very important to this social media project, and that is the word disciple. Now, a lot of people hear that word and they think it means the same thing as an apostle. It does not. A lot of people probably don't realize how much that word has to do with being a Christian, even though you have places like Acts 11:26 that says that who were first called Christians at Antioch? The disciples. See, the word Christian essentially means disciple of Christ, but more about that when we're talking about the word Christian. The word disciple in the Bible is mainly translating the Greek word mathetes, which means a learner. And there is, of course, a Hebrew word for it that would have also been used in the first century. Of course, the New Testament itself is written in Greek, but we do see the Hebrew word talmid, which means the same thing that mathetes does, used in 1 Chronicles 25, verse 8. And this word too means a disciple or a learner. Now, when you hear learner, that might be familiar because you have probably heard people say, well, a disciple is a student. But one of the problems with that is oftentimes we bring our modern understanding of being a student to the word disciple. So we think student, what do we think? We think classroom, an hour a week, couple hours a week, few hours a week. We don't think of somebody that not only is learning from a teacher, but spending vast amounts of time with his teacher, literally following his teacher, watching his teacher in order to become just like his teacher. See, that's what a disciple was. They talk about being covered in the dust of your rabbi, a disciple being a learner from a rabbi in Jewish society. Well, that being covered by dust of your rabbi, that comes from a literal thing that they would, travel about literally following their rabbi. He might be teaching them on the way. They're watching his example to become like him. More about that here in a second. And so these roads are dusty, so you're literally getting the dust of your rabbi on you. But this was kind of a symbol of how much you were focused on your teacher, that you're literally following him. In fact, the invitation to become a disciple of a rabbi is the phrase, follow me. You see Jesus say that to some people in the New Testament, don't you? A disciple, to really define it, three words: a follower, a learner, and an imitator. Now we'll start with that middle one, a learner. You are going to be learning information from them. Now, part of how you learn too is by their example. The example of the rabbi was very important. Of course, you're literally following them. So part of your learning process is just spending vast amounts of time with them. You'd be away from your family quite a bit and this sort of thing. And then ultimately, you're watching them and learning from them to become just like them. So you're an imitator of your rabbi in order to become your rabbi. That is, in order to become just like your teacher. And Jesus alludes to this in Matthew 10:25, where he talks about a disciple being like his teacher. And of course, we've heard this in connection to being a Christian with, the questions, what would Jesus do? Or, Romans 8:29, where it talks about being conformed to the image of the Son. A disciple, a follower, a learner, and an imitator. So when it comes to being a disciple of Christ, we're talking about following. Of course, he's not physically here, but we abide in his word. We make the same choices he would make. We stay in fellowship with him. We're learning from him. We're in his word. We're reading his word, and we're doing our best to become like him. Thank you for being with me today. You have a great one, and shalom.